Okay, welcome everybody. Baruch Hashem, this is our, I think probably seventh in our life skill series about women's health. And if you want, you can. If you don't,
I'll probably do it in between.
Okay, sounds good.
I get jittery.
Yeah, I also do. That's why I snapped. So, Baruch Hashem, we have had the great zchus of hearing amazing speakers over the past few weeks. If you haven't yet been here for them, you can always check them out on our YouTube channel. So it's Living Chassidus. You can search that. And we've had talks on birth. We've had talks on nursing. We've had talks on pelvic floor health and even more. So I have to say a huge thank you to Hashem, because when I reached out to Eichler, the response I got was, that would be amazing if I didn't give birth yet. So, not that I was davening for baby to stay in longer, but we are very lucky that Hashem helped us out and allowed us to speak for us tonight. And I want to say thank you to everyone who came, because the two of us would have a wonderful time talking, but the fact that you guys are here just makes it so much more exciting. And I want to also say a huge thank you to Sarah for coming, because I feel, and I for myself, by the time I gave birth to my first child, I did not hear, and I didn't know about Hypnobabies, so I did hypnobirthing. And it has helped so much with each one of my births, and I really truly see how hypnosis through birthing is such a beautiful concept that's based, or in my life, it's based in Chassidus, and I see how it's mayach shat halev. It's literally my mind. Sorry, but really, that's what I wanted. And
I think it's because we have that background. It's so easy to use this technique because it's ingrained in us because of Chassidus.
Exactly. Really right. Cool. Exactly.
It's nice that you see that.
Yeah. So when I heard about Sarah Eichler, and I said, okay, Hypnobabies, I've heard amazing things. Many of my friends have used it and have seen incredible results. So I said, okay, that's it. We need to have her. So thank you very much. And I'm going to pass this.
Oh, I hold this?
Well, you can clip it to your clothes or your...
All right, let me know.
Right. So is Hypnobabies, it's the name of your organization? It's a different technique than hypnobirth?
Completely different.
That's what
it's the name of the organization, but it's also a completely different technique. So, yeah.
I don't know about either.
No worries. So what I'll generally start with is just like a little basic overview of like where I come from and like my little journey. And then we'll talk about like what is hypnosis, and then how we can apply it to birth, and then what is Hypnobabies versus other childbirth education programs. So, hi, I'm Sarah Eichler. My journey began when I got pregnant with my first child. I was a little older, older ripe age of 26 years old. And I'm a researcher. I love information. I love research. And so I read many books, and I was talking to childbirth educators, and but I still felt like I was fearing birth. I was fearing what was going to happen. I needed something more. And so I did find hypnobirthing, and I read the book, and I was like, okay, this is nice, but no, I need something more tachlis. I want something even more juicy. And so I called up one of the childbirth educators in Crown Heights at that point in time. And I said to her, I was like, look, I've read all these books, but I still feel like I'm lacking something. I sort of found this home study course called Hypnobabies. Like, what do you think? She was like, look, you cannot come to my class because you're going to be bored. She was like, you've read way too many books, and it's just not going to be useful for you. So why don't you, pardon me, it's like, why don't you try the home study course? Just like, the worst thing is you spend a few $100 and it doesn't work, and big deal. And so I went and I bought the home study course because I didn't know that there was any providers in the area. And I had amazing sleep during my pregnancy. And I used to joke to my husband that even if it doesn't work for my birth, at least I got to sleep well during my pregnancy. And every time I complained to him, oh my gosh, I can't sleep, he'd be like, just go put on your CD, go put on your track, you'll be fine. And he was right. I mean, towards the end of that first pregnancy, I tried to take Tylenol. I was having like a lot of stretching and I was really uncomfortable and it wasn't working. But as soon as I would put my track on, which is to help me go into hypnosis, it would work. My journey didn't stop there. I gave birth. I then became a lactation consultant. I certified in Lamaze. And then a few years later, once I had the opportunity to do the Hypnobabies training course, because it's 5 days, you have to travel to them. It's like really intense. I became Hypnobaby certified. What else did I do? I also am DONA certified doula. So I feel like once you get into this industry, once you become like in the birth world, you just want to learn more and more and more and more. And then you just don't stop talking about it and you just want to give it over to everybody. So tonight we are focusing on hypnosis for childbirth, and we're then going to talk about hypnobabies. Someone asked about hypnobabies versus hypnobirthing, so we'll talk about that as well. But the main thing is like, what is hypnosis? And a lot of people, when you hear hypnosis, you're like freaking out. You're like, oh my gosh, someone's going to make me click like a chicken. And it's like, no, not quite. The stage hypnosis is a form of hypnosis. But what hypnosis does to you is it begins with a focused concentration. It really allows you to relax and be nice and focused, and it sort of makes your brain go into a very relaxed state. Now, why would you want to do that? Because if our brain is in this relaxed state, we can then change our belief system, okay? To take it a step back, we have the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, okay? Your conscious mind is what you do to write, to think, to anything that you're actually doing that you are focused on, and you know that you are doing it, is conscious mind. Subconscious mind is pretty much every single thing that's ever happened to you in life has been stored in the back brain of your brain, sort of computer files. So you have videos and audios and everything. That is your filing cabinet of all your life experiences. Anything that you've heard, anything that you've picked up. Between the two is called the critical faculty. Now, that's sort of like the policeman of your brain. In other words, if you want to change a belief, let's say the sky is green and not blue, it has to go through the critical faculty, and the critical faculty will go through your filing cabinets and try to find, well, where are references that the sky is blue, where are references that the sky is green. And if it sees many, many files and the sky is blue, it will be like, this doesn't go with what I have in my belief system. The sky is not green, the sky is blue. Now, this sort of critical faculty happens to children, and if I remember correctly, I think it's between the ages of 7 and 9. That's when we actually get our critical faculty. So, in other words, your kids are in a state of hypnosis until that age. And that's why if you have a child and you tell them that there's a monster under their bed, they truly, sincerely believe that there's a monster under their bed because you told them that, and they have no way to combat that belief. So they will believe that there's a tiger or a monster under their bed, and they will cry and they will have an emotional response. So what we do is we use hypnosis to subdue the critical faculty, to relax it, so that we can go and directly into the subconscious mind and change the belief system. That's what we do with hypnosis. A side effect of hypnosis is that you are in a deeply relaxed state as well. So for birth, that's really great, because what do we need to be when we're giving birth? We need our body to relax, because we need our body to just do what it needs to do. And if we are tensing up our body, the birth might be longer, it might be more uncomfortable, it might stall. So using hypnosis just on a very basic level in birth is relaxing the body. But in childbirth hypnosis, we take it a step further. We don't only want to relax our body, we actually want to change our belief system. We want to retrain our mind that birth is not something that we should be terrified of, that birth shouldn't be painful, that birth shouldn't be something we should fear. So we use hypnosis to change that belief system. So hypnosis is a skill that pretty much anyone can do. I know a lot of people are like, oh, someone's going to put me into hypnosis. That's actually a myth. No one can make you go into hypnosis. It is a choice. Hypnosis is all self-hypnosis. So if you want to be hypnotized, you will be hypnotized. If you don't want to be hypnotized, you cannot be hypnotized. I think it's about 20% of people are highly suggestible. 15 to 20% of people are very highly suggestible and they go into hypnosis like that. You have about 10 to 15% that are very resilient to hypnosis, and then you have everybody somewhere in the middle. So if any of you have ever noticed, if you've gone to like one of these stage hypnosis experiences, they'll have like 30 people on the stage originally. And then what happens? Slowly, people are kicked off the stage. Why? Because either they're not suggestible to start off with, or they go out of the hypnosis, and it's not really fun if they're not doing what the person says. So they're just like, okay, bye, see you later. So you have to want to go into a state of hypnosis. When I was training for Hypnobabies, we had to do a very small, but it was 50-hour hypnosis course, and part of that was putting people into hypnosis. And at that point in time, I had the 3 little ones, but the 2 older ones were like 6 and 5, perfect suggestibility age. And so I did hypnotize them, and they hypnotized like this. It was like so cute. It was so quick, and they were like really relaxed, and they were like, oh, this is so cool. And then we got them out of hypnosis. The other people, on the other hand, the adults, some of them I had to do different techniques. I think there was one person who shall remain nameless. I'm not going to say who it was. There's someone very close to me, and it took me 5 times to get them to be hypnotized. But when they finally said, okay, I'm going to let my body relax and be hypnotized, and they got out of the hypnosis, they're like, wow, that was so nice. That was like a really nice, relaxed feeling. And I was like, yeah, it took you long enough to let me hypnotize you. And I had to use different induction techniques, and we'll talk about that as well. So you choose to enter hypnosis, you choose to stay in hypnosis, and you choose to emerge from hypnosis. It's always your choice what you're going to do with the hypnosis. And in my classes, sometimes I have moms that are just in such a deeply relaxed state. When I finish the script and I will count people out of the hypnosis, they do not want to go out. So we're like twiddling our thumbs now. What you actually have to do is then go to the person and actually use their name and count them out. So they have that connection. They really hear, oh, okay, I can't stay here the whole night. I really have to go out. And again, some people are like, but I was sleeping. I was like, but you heard every single word. You heard me count you up. They're like, oh, yeah. So it might seem like they're sleeping, but they're actually not. And that's the type of hypnosis we teach in Hypnobabies. So again, you are always in control of your mind when you are in a state of hypnosis. So a lot of people are like, well, I've never been in hypnosis, right? How many of you think you've never been in hypnosis? Raise your hands. Okay, I'm going to prove you all wrong. Have any of you walked to your work or gone to work or driven somewhere and you don't remember how you got from point A to point B? That's a state of hypnosis. Has anyone been reading a book? And I mean, this used to happen to me all the time with my mother, and she'd call my name and call my name, and I did not hear her. And then all of a sudden she'd be like, Sarah, I'm calling you like 6 times. I'm like, really? It's like the first time I've heard it. Meaning you are in an altered state of consciousness. You are so engrossed in your book or your movie or listening to music, you don't hear anything else. You're so focused on your task, you don't hear anything else. Even though the world is still going on around you, you don't hear it. That is a state of hypnosis. Video games, you'll see like a lot of kids, like they're with their video games and you'll call their name and totally like there's no connection, no relation. State of hypnosis. What else? Daydreaming. I see a lot of young ladies over here, which I'm sure many of you are in college or were in college. How many of you literally sat in a lecture, did not hear a word of the lecture, and then all of a sudden, and next week's exam, and boom, you're out? State of hypnosis. So hypnosis is a state that we do use, we do have throughout our lives. So if you've ever experienced that, you've all been in a hypnotic state. So what do we use hypnosis for? we use hypnosis. A lot of people, I mean, psychologists, social workers, if they are certified in hypnotherapy, they can use it to eliminate phobias, fears, anxieties. Some people use it to stop smoking, weight loss, eliminate fears. And again, this is because when you are in that state of hypnosis, you can change that belief system. You can change what you've been taught your entire life, but you have to be open to it. So that's like the catch-22. Yeah.
Okay, so for me, it's like the opposite. Like I've had friends and things that are like, you know, like when you're calling it, or like my husband, I'm like calling the name, I'm like, I really don't understand how you can be so into your book or into whatever you're doing. Like, I really, like, sometimes he goes like the wrong way in the subway. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you live in the city? Like, I don't know, whatever. Like, not him specifically, but like my sister's like that too. And like, there's a lot of people that are kind of like, I don't know if they're more like distracted, I guess. I don't know what
it could also be just distraction.
So like, can't, like, I don't understand that at all.
Right.
So like, is it like so much harder for someone like me to get into hypnosis?
No, as long as you are open to hypnosis, and as long as you're open to allowing yourself to go into that state, then you will have no problem. So I've had some really stressed and anxious moms that are like, but I need to be in control. And I'm like, actually, the hypnosis will allow you to be even in more control because you'll be so focused. So as long as you allow yourself to have that ability to focus, there's no reason why you shouldn't. So as long as you let yourself have that suggestibility, there's no reason.
Like when you're not pregnant, like if you're also just having sleeping problems in general?
So there are, again, hypnosis can be applied to any aspect of your life. This specific technique is specifically made for childbirth.
Okay.
However, I've been doing it, my daughter's now 9.5. I've been doing this now, I guess, almost 10 years because I did it before I had her. And I use it for going to the dentist, for going to the doctors, for blood work. So I've taken the skill that I've learned of self-hypnosis and I've applied it to other aspects of my life. But this specific program, no, no one's promising that you're going to be able to go and do it for blood work if that's not what it is. But yes, you can take the skill set and then apply it to other aspects of your life. So, so some people will use it for physical issues, so pain, use it to eliminate pain. Some people will use it to eliminate physical problems, surgical procedures. So this one, again, we were talking about like connecting it with Chassidus. So my theory is that we do talk about hypnosis in Chassidus because we do have the story, and I don't know which Rebbe it is, so maybe someone can tell me. The story of the Rebbe that sang a niggun when he was getting surgery. Is it the Alter Rebbe? I always think it's the Alter Rebbe, and I know it's not. It's not a Chabad Rebbe? Kloisenberger Rebbe? I don't know. Anyway, there is this story of a Rebbe that needed to have surgery. And for some reason, he couldn't have anesthetic. Maybe it wasn't offered. It was in Russia. Who knows? And the story is that he said, don't worry about it. I'm going to sing a niggun. And so that niggun got him into a state of hypnosis, an altered state of consciousness, that they were able to do the surgery on him without him feeling it, without him having any pain. There's also the story of the person in Russia, the chassid that was a spy, and the person was like, oh, there's a spy amongst us, and he felt the heartbeat of this person, and the heartbeat stayed steady. Why? Because what Michal was saying before, the mind rules the heart. And with hypnosis, we see this so clearly that it's like almost easy to take that and be like, okay, so let's use this now for childbirth. Like, how can we apply this to childbirth? So in Hypnobabies, we use a few techniques because we use it to relieve emotional issues. So if there's any previous trauma from birth or fears, we have a fear clearing script. We have which again, when I say script, it's a hypnotic script that will allow you to go into a state of hypnosis and eliminate a fear and then count yourself out of that hypnosis. So you can get rid of all that tension before you have the baby so that when you are having the baby, you're nice and relaxed and calm. The other thing that we use is called medical hypnoanesthesia. So the type of hypnosis that is taught in Hypnobabies is the medical grade hypnosis that if you were going to a dentist and you had root canal surgery or whatever, and you cannot have anesthetic for whatever reason, this is the type of hypnosis they would use on you. Now, you're going to learn the skill before you have the baby because we teach it with a post-hypnotic technique or compounding technique. So two different techniques. One, the compounding technique is we're going to teach you the basic of relaxation. Then we're going to teach you hypnosis. Then we're going to teach you hypnoanesthesia. Then we're going to teach you eyes open hypnosis, which allows you to move around. And we're going to go into these things more in depth soon. And then we get you to that point that you're in that really deep somnambulistic hypnosis, which literally means sleepwalking hypnosis or sleeping hypnosis, which you think you look like you're sleeping, but you're totally aware of everything that's going on around you if you choose to be. So, so someone was saying, oh, am I hypnotizable? Again, only 10 to 15% of people are not hypnotizable. And again, it's a choice that they're making. They don't want to be hypnotizable. So it could be that on a stage, they won't let anyone hypnotize them, but in a birth class or with a therapist, they will. So if you can read a book, be on the phone with somebody, sort of self-focus yourself there, you can be hypnotized. If you daydream, you can be hypnotized. If you are open to the experience, you can be hypnotized. You just have to have a willingness to follow instructions. So if you believe it's in your interest to listen to what I'm going to tell you, and we're going to do, sorry guys, on the internet, but we'll shut that off and we'll do a little exercise at the end of the class for hypnosis, which is a lot of fun. So as long as you're able to follow somebody and listen to instructions, you are able to go into hypnosis if you're open-minded. So a little bit about the Hypnobabies course, because that's what I'm here to talk about. So Hypnobabies was created by Carrie Tushoff. She actually was a Bradley instructor, and then she did another hypnosis course, and she sort of, again, she wanted something more meaty. She found Gerald Klein's Hypnosis for Childbirth, and she worked with him to create then her own program called Hypnobabies. Hypnobabies is a childbirth course that teaches self-hypnosis techniques to automatically produce natural anesthesia through the body using the power of the mind. And again, it's the same techniques that people would use in a medical setting. So again, it's not under anybody's spell or control. Rather, you're in a hyper state of awareness, which then allows you to be in a deeply relaxed state. And so what we do in Hypnobabies is we teach it via again, that compounding technique, and then a post-hypnotic suggestion technique, because again, you're going to use it for your birthing time. So a lot of times I'll have students that'll be like, oh, I tried to use the technique at my doctor or my midwife today, and I didn't really feel like it worked. And I'll be like, don't worry about it. It's very likely that, again, you're training yourself for birth. So if it doesn't work during your pregnancy, not a problem. In class number 2, we actually do an exercise where I go around and I squeeze everybody's arm, and everyone's like, what are you feeling, pain or pressure or discomfort? Again, we're very careful with language. And some people will be like, oh, discomfort, and some people just feel pressure. And then I count them up and I ask everybody, you know, what did you feel? And they'll remember, and then I'll go around and I'll do it again. They'll be like, oh, no way, you did not squeeze me that hard. And I'll be like, totally did. And again, so even though you felt it, because it's hypnosis, it's hypnoanesthesia, you're still gonna feel it, but you're gonna feel it as pressure. That's really what we're training the mind to see. We're training the mind that when you're having, and again, I'm gonna use the Hypnobabies term, which is a pressure wave or pressure. We don't use certain words because some words have negative association with it. So if I would say labor, what are you all thinking? Hard work, pain. I'm sweating, I'm schwitzy. So we say birthing time, or we'll say, if you're going to ask someone, are you in pain? Well, as soon as I say that word, oh, where am I having pain? I'm having pain, especially if you ask a pregnant woman, are you in pain? And all of a sudden, they'll be like, oh, I got something on my back and I got something on my hip. But if you say, are you uncomfortable or you're having discomfort, it's a much more neutral term. You're still getting the same effect, but you're not having that negative connotation. And again, going back to Chassidus, what was the Rebbe very into? Words. Words have power. So we don't say someone is a bad person. They're not good, right? So the same thing in Hypnobabies. We want the terms to be very neutral because we want that everything should be positive. You know, we'll talk about birth stories, and, you know, some of my students, they'll have, a baby shower. And I'll be like, guys, just say my baby's listening. I don't want to hear these stories, or, you know, positive birth stories only. After I've had my baby, go for it. But most women, if you get a few women in a room, what are they going to talk about? They're going to talk about birth, nursing, shaytels, but birth is a really, really big one. And so, because you remember these experiences, so we want to really make it as positive as possible. So we're very, very careful on the language that we use. So the technique that we teach in Hypnobabies allows you to do what's called hypnoanesthesia. Now, we spoke about induction techniques, so how to get into hypnosis. So there's many different ways to get into hypnosis. In Hypnobabies, we teach a finger drop technique. So we have physical techniques, but we also have verbal cues. And what you're going to do in the program is you're going to learn these techniques over the 6 weeks, and then you're going to have a maintenance program until you actually give birth. So that's something that's unique to Hypnobabies. Other programs, they'll have like one technique and that's it. So what Carrie recognized was like, she was like, not everyone's going to like the finger drop, or not everyone is going to have their hands on the table and be able to do a finger drop technique. And when I say a finger drop technique, you're literally lifting up your finger and pressing down, almost like you're flicking a light switch. So in Hypnobabies, we have what's called on, which means you're not in a state of hypnosis. It's what everybody's in right now. And then we have the off switch, which is a full state of hypnosis. Your entire body is trained not to move. You're like in full anesthesia. I sort of say general anesthesia. It's like your body's completely relaxed. So a lot of women will use that at the beginning, or when they are sleeping, or when they don't want to move. But for those of you that have had babies or will be having babies, one thing that you'll notice is when you're giving birth, you want to move. You want to like sway your hips. You want to move your body. You want to use gravity to get this baby down and out into this world. So you don't want to be laying flat on your back the entire time. So how do we combat that? And again, this is something unique to Hypnobabies, which is we do what's called eyes open childbirth hypnosis. And that is what we call our center switch. So you have on, you have off, and then you have center. So center switch is that you're in hypnosis. So once you go into your birthing time, you're always in hypnosis. The question is how deep is your anesthesia going to be? So we have the off switch, which from top to bottom, we're in complete anesthesia. And then we have eyes open hypnosis, which allows us to talk, communicate, and move during birth. And that is from the top of your chest all the way to the middle of your thighs. That's in hypnoanesthesia, we call it. But the rest of your body, your face and your legs can move and wiggle and do what it wants. So where you need that relaxation, which is by your uterus and by your legs and by that area, that's still going to be completely numb. Again, hypnosis you'll pressure, you're still going to feel every normal sensation, but we're taking away that discomfort. So some people will feel just pressure. Some people might feel more pressure than others, but you have that movement. And then what you sort of do is you use your switch according to how you want to do it. And let me know if I'm not making any sense here. What you want to do is, like, let's say you're having a really intense pressure wave, and what we'll see is towards the end of the birth, when women start to really feel like they're about to imminently give birth, during transformation, again, we don't say transition because some people might have negative connotations. We say transformation. It's like right before you're about to transform into a mom for the first time, or for the second, third, fourth, fifth. That's when women become very internal, and they might want to start switching off again. So that's sort of like when you might be supported on the ball, or your doula might be supporting you, or the bed might be supporting you, and you might want to go into off again. So you've got those three levels, but we use the 2 hypnosis levels once we go into our birthing time. So it's really easy, very pleasant. Now, some people do experience pain-free, and I'm going to use that word, or very comfortable childbirth. but we don't guarantee it. No Hypnobabies instructor is going to tell you, oh, you're going to have a pain-free birth. It's not something we say. If you look at the motto, it's an easy, more comfortable childbirth. And I think that's really important to understand and to appreciate that every single woman that gives birth, whatever experience you have, is going to be beautiful and good, and it's going to be the right experience for you. So some women, I had one lady call me up. She actually didn't even finish the whole course. I think it was between week 4 and week 5. She had the baby 5 weeks early, and she calls me up. She's like, Mazel tov, I had a baby. And I was like, what? Like, you're not due for another 5 weeks. She's like, you don't understand. I'm telling you, times of Mashiach. I couldn't even believe it. She ended up, I'm trying to remember the story because I have a lot of stories. I think she ended up giving birth at home with Hatzalah, or she rushed to the hospital and she gave birth like right when she arrived at the hospital with Hatzalah. Don't remember exactly. But the point is like she had the skill set. She didn't fit. By class 4, you've learned all the skills, and then we're just like reinforcing them. But for some reason, during that 4th class, I had mentioned, if you feel pressure and you feel a tremendous amount of pressure, you've already missed your chance to get to the hospital by yourselves. You call Hatzalah. Like, once you start feeling that pushy pressure, you're having your baby really soon. And so it was that little tinkle in the back of her mind, because she's like so calm and so relaxed. She was like, this doesn't make sense. This is not what I've been taught my entire life birth should be like. So she was like, but Sarah said, if I'm feeling pressure, I should call Hatzalah. So she ended up doing that, and thank God she had her baby in a very safe environment. But the idea is that, yes, you can have your baby in this way. Does everybody have their baby like this? No. There's a lot of variables. Position of the baby, the commitment of the mom to the program, that's going to impact the birth. You know, who's your provider, who you surrounding yourself with, do you yourself really want this type, you know, are you ready to commit? Because it is something that you really do have to train your mind. And I do have people that will call me up after birth. They're like, I wish I would have done more training. Or they'll call me after the 2nd birth and they'll be like, oh, it was so much better this time. I was so much, you know, I did it really properly and it was so much more amazing and so much more powerful. And I'm like, that's great. I love hearing stories just about being empowered. You know, I felt so empowered. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent. We're going to reverse back a little bit because I want you to understand what, all right, before I say that story, I need to give you a little bit of background. So we have hypnosis that we teach in the Hypnobabies class. We have the fear clearing track, which we spoke about. So remember, if your body can work in the beautiful symphony to have this baby, and there's no restriction and there's no preconceived notion or fight back, then your uterus can work really beautifully together. The uterus is made up of a number of muscles, different layers, and while one is squeezing, the other one is relaxing. So essentially, you've got like these beautiful muscles that while one is creating pressure, the other one is loose. And it's literally squeezing your baby down. First, it's pulling up the cervix to open up first, we're pulling up to open up the cervix, and then then the waves, or the pressure waves, or the birthing waves, however you want to call them, change to push down the baby out. So what we're using the hypnosis for in childbirth, the side effect of hypnosis is relaxation. And why is that so important during birth? Is that if your uterus can work appropriately, then we don't have what we call, and this is from Dr. Gantley Dick Reed, the fear, pain, tension cycle. So hypnosis allows us to stop that from happening. We don't want that fear, pain, tension cycle, because if we have it, then we're going to fear, we're going to have more pain, and we're going to tense. If we tense, we're going to have more pain, and then we fear it again, right? So we want to stop that from the beginning. I'm sure one of you, well, what if I go out of hypnosis? Hypnosis is a choice, remember? So even if you go out of it, even for 20 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever it is, you can always choose to go back into hypnosis. You can always choose to relax your body. You might have to reset. You might have to have someone guide you and be like, you're doing amazing. Just keep it up. You're almost there. Verbal dialogue with a birthing mom I mean, as a doula, you see what verbal dialect can do. Like, you know, the mom is about to give up and she's like, that's it, I'm done. I'm ready to like quit. I don't want to do this anymore. And you're like, but you're so close, you can do it. And they're like, really? I'm almost there. Their whole body changes. Their whole body relaxes. You tell them to melt into the bed. Okay, I'm going to melt. And, you know, and then their body can do what it needs to do. So we need to, again, we need to combat all these stories that we've heard our entire lives to allow our brain and our body to have that connection. And that's the other thing that hypnosis really allows you to do, is have that mind-body connection, which can be so, so incredible. So the fear clearing session is specifically to eliminate any of these fears that we might have picked up, or if we've had previous children before, let's get rid of these fears before we're actually at our birthing time, so that our body can relax and that we can use hypnosis and we can have this baby in a beautiful, calm environment. One of the bonuses of the program with Hypnobabies is that we do have scripts. And the scripts come on either tracks where you download them. I mean, in the old days, it used to be CDs. Now we have everything online. But you do get a script book for the birth partner, which is in my bag over there. And when you're in the class, you do what's called a teaching script. And then you go home and you reinforce that script. It's like going to the gym, right? If you go to the gym with a personal trainer once a week, but you don't follow up at the gym 3-4 times a week, are you going to see results? Maybe. But if you do follow up and you do go to the gym with a personal trainer once a week, and then you do go by yourself 3-4 times a week, you're going to see your muscles get much stronger, right? Because you're exercising them. Same thing with the brain. So you come to the class, you learn information, you do your teaching script, but then you go home and you do what's called like the maintenance scripts. And that either you can listen to on your phone, MP3 player, whatever, or we spoke about induction techniques, right? Or your husband could say it to you. And then his voice becomes an induction technique for you. So when you're in your birthing time, if you hear his voice, your brain knows, ooh, I should be relaxed when I hear that voice. And we also have, his voice becomes an induction technique, but then remember we spoke about there's physical cues and verbal cues. There's also verbal cues that we talk about. So there are certain words that you learn in Hypnobabies. For example, relax or release. Remember we spoke about the finger drop technique? What if you don't have anywhere to put your finger? Or what if you're lying like this and you don't want to lift your finger up? So we use the same technique, but we say release. Now you can verbally say the word release and you'll switch into off. Or you can say it in your head and you'll switch into off. So it's the same technique, but you're given choices. And some people are very physical and some people are more imaginative, you know, or they use their mind more. It really depends. Every woman's going to be different in their birthing time. The other thing is the hypnosis, the hypnoanesthesia is going to be different for everybody, and the hypnosis experience is going to be different for everybody because everybody has different ways their brain processes things. So some people are very sensory, so they'll feel the warmth of the hypnoanesthesia. Some people, we name it a color, we say orange. Some people will see the orange, some people just think about the orange. Some people will feel the numbness. I've had a few students that literally, they're like, I literally felt numb. They were like, I wasn't feeling my feet, I wasn't feeling my belly when they were doing their practice. And I was like, that's amazing. Like if that, you could use that in your birthing time, how awesome is that? But again, there's no judgment. Everybody is different. So everyone's going to experience it differently. So we're talking about the birth partner as an induction technique. And then also the person's voice, Carrie actually reads, is on all the scripts. Her voice becomes an induction technique. So as soon as you hear her voice, you'll be like, ooh, I'm nice and relaxed. It's like unbelievable. And that's why when you are listening to the scripts, you do want to be in a very safe environment. Like you're not playing this while you're driving your car. It's a no-go, not happening. So the main element in Hypnobabies for a more easier and comfortable birth is hypnosis. If you haven't gotten that yet, I'm going to repeat it. And again, it allows us to go into that deep state of relaxation. And as we said before, we're going into what's called the somnambulistic hypnosis which is the sleepwalking one. All right, we spoke about that. You're still going to feel normal sensations. So some people are like, am I not going to feel my birth? Am I not going to be present? You're totally going to be present in your birth. You're going to be so relaxed. You're going to feel it, but you're not going to feel that discomfort. You might feel pressure. You might feel intense pressure. As one of the Parkslip midwives told me, she's like, you still got to push out that baby. No one's going to push it out for you. You still got to, you know, physically help this birth along. But again, much more relaxed, much more controlled state. So as I said before, we've got the fear clearing, and then we do post-hypnotic suggestions. So the suggestions are constantly embedded in your mind throughout the program for an easier, more comfortable childbirth, that you're going to be so deeply relaxed, and it's repeated. So the program is 6 weeks, but you can't be like, okay, I'm done, I'm finished, and then wait for your birthing time, because then your brain is going to be fed all this other information till the birthing time, and it's going to undo everything that was just learned. So you actually have a maintenance program, and you're going to be constantly reinforcing all the ideas that you've learned throughout the program. So in order to create that somnambulistic hypnosis, we go into that deep state of hypnosis. Okay. So once we're in that deep state of hypnosis, then we can be deeply relaxed. And if you listen to the scripts, a lot of them are deeper and deeper with every breath you exhale, more and more hypnoanesthesia entering your body. You end up knowing how to repeat these words that even if you don't want to have her voice playing in the background, you probably could say it to yourself over and over again. But again, the reason we need to be deeply relaxed is so that our body can get this baby out, can work and do what it needs to do to maneuver the baby through the pelvis, maneuver the baby up and out in a nice and relaxed state. So again, the practice is essential. We do progressive muscle relaxation, different induction techniques. Does everybody know what progressive muscle relaxation is? Yeah, beautiful.
No.
No? Okay, so progressive muscle relaxation is when you go through each part of your body and you focus on that part of your body and you relax it. So some people will do it, they'll be like, take a deep breath in and squeeze your hands. And then when you let go, when you release that breath, relax your hands. Now let's do it with our shoulders, with our thighs, with our legs, with our toes, with our jaw, with our eyebrows. And what that does is, again, if you have such control over your body that you're able to realize, ooh, I might be tensing my hands, or your mom or your doula, whoever's there with you, your husband, and they'll be like, oh, just relax your hands. And again, one of the induction words that we use is relax. Then your hand will just relax. And because you've been doing this throughout your entire pregnancy, it just happens automatically. So we're going back to the subconscious mind to train it to a point that it's not even conscious anymore. My last birth, I had the midwife didn't know that I was doing Hypnobabies, but she just kept telling me for some reason, just relax into the bed. And again, it's an induction technique. It's something that I was training, that as soon as someone tells me relax, I'm gonna relax. And so every time she said relax to me, I just went like this. So I guess she realized, ooh, there must be an association with this word and what this mom is doing. So she just kept repeating it to me. And my body kept just relaxing. So I might have gone out, then I go back in. You go out, you go back in. Some people are just like chilling the entire time. Other people want that in and out experience. So again, we want to do this hypnosis technique to stop the fear, pain, tension cycle. How do we do that? Because we use hypnosis to use with the side effect to relax our bodies, but we also have all these other verbal cues. So again, hypnosis creates deep relaxation. If I didn't say it enough, I'm going to say it again. So, so we spoke a little bit about fear clearing, but I'm just going to take it one step further, which is even if you think you don't fear birth, I mean, let's think about the births that most of us have seen through documentaries, videos, TV, whatever it is. How many of them are showing you a woman that's just like relaxed like this? Not so many. And if you want that, you have to go and find it. You have to type in birth hypnosis or really calm mom giving birth. Most of the stories are sensationalized, right? Nobody wants to see a woman giving birth that's just like swaying and being relaxed and like, and calm. No, it has to be drama. It has to be like lights, and the doctors have to come in and save this woman, right?
The husband faints and everyone's
Exactly. The husband has to faint and the woman has to grab her legs and start screaming. So even if we think we haven't been trained to fear birth and that birth should be terrifying and all that, it is ingrained in us. Interestingly enough, Dr. Gantley Dick Reed only started his research when he was, I always mix up the two stories. There's one story where he was at a birth in a home. This was when the poor people were still, hospitals were expensive to go and have babies. And he was training. So he went to the people's homes and he saw this one woman and she was just doing her thing. And he was like just sitting in the corner doing nothing. All of a sudden she squatted, she gave birth to her baby. And he went to check the baby and he was like, is everything okay? She was like, what, doctor, did I do something wrong? And that was his first inkling into, well, she didn't know any better. She didn't know that she's supposed to be panicking and screaming and, all these kind of things. So innately, if women were just like left alone to their own devices, they should be able to just be relaxed. There's also like different tribes in Africa that we speak about that are just really relaxed, or the women. There was one of the doctors, and again, I don't remember who, but he writes in his book where he was in the rice fields somewhere in Asia, and the women literally would be working, stop, give birth to the baby, cut the umbilical cord, put the baby on the back, and keep working. And he was like, how is this possible? Like, are women in Europe so different? No, they're not. Our pelvises are the same. What's the difference? The expectation. What have we been taught as kids? So what the hypnosis does and what the fear clearing session does is it allows us to let go of all these fears or these preconceived notions to allow us to have this belief that maybe maybe it is possible that birth can be an enjoyable experience, that it can be something empowering, and it can be something that I can really be focused on and just be one with my body and my baby. So the one thing, again, that you have to understand is it's not a listen-only program. Hypnobabies, yes, we do have 15 different tracks. 4 or 5 of them are specifically for your birthing day, which is something very unique. But you need to understand that we also teach a full childbirth education course. And one of the reasons is because we don't want you to come to Hypnobabies and learn only hypnosis and then have to go somewhere else and learn about breastfeeding and newborn care and childbirth classes, because you're going to undo everything that you've just learned. Like if you go to one class and they're talking how birth should be a beautiful experience and you should relax, and then the next class is like, how are we going to get through this pain? We're going to breathe, and we're going to wiggle, and we're going to, and they're constantly reinforcing the idea that it's going to be uncomfortable and painful and all that. It's not really going to work. So Hypnobabies is a 6-week course. Each class is 3 to 3.5 hours long. So it's 21 hours in total of teaching. But the beauty is it's a one-stop shop. You do everything in this one class, which is lovely. So again, it's not encouraged. If you want to do Hypnobabies, do not go do the classes at the hospital. I mean, they have their own agenda. They want you to, learn the information a certain way because they want you to be a certain type of patient. If you go, and again, I am certified in Lamaze. Lamaze does not teach the breathing anymore because they realized that women were not using it correctly. They also realized that most women would get themselves into a state of hyperventilation or exhaustion. So if any of you ever heard of Lamaze and know the background, they actually don't teach that anymore for a specific reason. So again, you want one technique, you want to follow it, you want to, we want to stay in a positive sort of environment, which Hypnobabies does create for you. We want that your emotions and belief system are in full alignment of the Hypnobabies class. And again, most classes are geared towards a completely different mindset. So you don't want to have that like constant struggle with your belief system, because we did say, the mind always wants to go back to what they originally know. So if you're going to go to one class and then reinforce the previous belief system, you're undoing everything that you've learned in Hypnobabies. Okay. So Hypnobabies, again, the class is done over 6 weeks. There's no such thing as a taboo subject, and I love that, because I know like some childbirth courses, they will not discuss certain things, so they'll only teach hypnosis, and they won't talk about epidurals, episiotomies, what else, IV lines, which is, you know, with most of us, I mean, has anyone given birth, or if anyone's pregnant, how many of you have gone to a hospital? Most, I mean, I think it's like 95% or 6% of women give birth in a hospital in the state, maybe even higher, give birth in America in a hospital. It's not like Europe where there's a very different ratio. So most women need this information. And one thing that I love to hear from my students is they'll be like, oh my goodness, I had the information this time. I felt so empowered. I was able to have a discussion with my care provider on an IV line or on the epidural or whatever it is. And for me, that is joy to my ears, because at the end of the day, you know, however you're going to give birth to your baby should be the right way for you. And if you need to use outside intervention, great, use it. But have that information, have that knowledge to have that power, that when you are talking to your midwife or your doctor, you can have an intellectual conversation with them and you have true choices. Again, we're talking about a situation where it's not an emergency, which most situations are not emergencies. It's very, very rare that the doctor has to rush you into the OR and do that. There's normally steps involved, whether you're using doctor or midwife. They are looking, you know, they do want to protect you and your baby. So they are looking for if there's any deviation, you know, is the baby's heart rate decelerating? Well, why? Let's try it. Maybe we've got to change position of the mom. Maybe we've got to do something. Oh, maybe the little sonogram, sorry, what's it called? The Doppler, thank you. Maybe the Doppler's just moved, or maybe the baby just did a massive drop and the Doppler, which was over here, now really has to be down here because the baby just dropped into the pelvis and is about to be born, which does happen. I had a mom call me up. It's like, oh my goodness, it was amazing. I got to the hospital 4 centimeters. And most of us think, oh, 4 centimeters, she's going to be there for hours. She gave birth in an hour. So I said to her, I was like, it's very possible you needed to feel safe. And I heard this at an event recently, and I thought it was really, really beautiful. The best environment to give birth is really where you're going to feel safe. So if you're going to feel safe in a hospital, that's where you should be giving birth. If you're going to feel more safe at home, then that's where you should be giving birth. You should never base where you're giving birth on someone else's safety feeling or environment feeling. But again, I digress. Sorry. So anyway, so we do teach everything in Hypnobabies. And again, so the first class you're learning like the basic of hypnosis, so you understand the concept, which most of you just learned today. We do go more in depth. And then from there on, we learn about the stages of birth, you know, what's going to happen. We learn about different interventions. So you have that knowledge. And then at the end of each class, you learn a new technique up till class number 4. And then class number 5, we do all the techniques that you've learned in a little mini script. And then class number 6, which I love, is a birth rehearsal. So in other words, you're going to take all these techniques that you've learned for your birth, and we're going to pretend like you're giving birth. So we're going to have pressure waves that are going to last 30 seconds, 40 seconds, 50, 60, a minute and a half, sort of like your peak. And then we're going to have the baby, and then we do all about postpartum care. And I think that's something that, again, not a lot of childbirth classes do unless you go and pay the extra newborn care class and breastfeeding class. Like most of them are separate. And I love that because as a lactation consultant, it's like we're so focused on birth. Now in New York City, once your water breaks, you're literally put on a clock for 24 hours in most hospitals. They want you to give birth and they're going to put you on the monitor. They're going to make sure baby's doing okay. But you're going to be on that clock, whether it's 24, 48, generally not past that. In the UK, they actually give you up to 72 hours, which is really cool. But the idea that I say is like, I really do hope most of you are going to breastfeed your baby more than 24 hours. So why is it that we're so focused on the birth and not the post-birth? Why is it that we have so many birthing classes that don't talk about post-birth and taking care of mom and taking care of baby? So in Hypnobabies, we do discuss that, which is really, really beautiful. By the way, if anyone has questions, go for it.
So you don't use any breathing technique?
So that's a really good question. So no, the breathing. Oh.
You're all good.
Did I drop it? Oh, it's on this side.
There you go.
Oh, repeat the question.
Yeah.
Sure. So she asked if we use any breathing techniques. So it's a great question. We do teach women how to breathe. And we teach women how to breathe really deeply, almost like a yoga breath. You want to deeply breathe in, fill up your lungs, open up your rib cage, fill up your belly, and then relax it out. But I know you're a doula. So you'll notice that a lot of women, when they're in their birthing time, they get very congested. So learning these breathing techniques, if I'm training someone to breathe through their nose and out through their mouth, but they're completely congested, or they don't have the breath to do it at that point in time, it doesn't help. So what we do start with is a deep, relaxed breath, which is just a nice controlled breathing. And then in the script, it says, now go into a breathing that is comfortable for you. What I do notice as someone that's given birth, but as a doula, is that if we do need to do, let's say, a panting breath, and we do talk about, you know, when you're about to give birth, so we talk about don't push during the birthing wave, push between the wave, because if you're going to push on top of your body, then when the baby's descending and coming out, your body might not have enough time to stretch and you're more likely to tear. So in that case, we'll talk about breathing, and we'll be like, breathe the baby out right at the end. But again, most women cannot see what they're doing. So that's where, you know, having a support person, and I know we spoke about doulas and all that. I mean, they're invaluable, whether they're trained or not trained. The research does show that having another female presence in the room does increase the odds, your statistics of having a vaginal birth, having a better birth experience, less chance of C-section, and less chance of intervention, and less chance of pain relief, because just by having another woman there is kind of insane. So yeah, we talk about breathing, we talk about how to breathe, but at the end of the day, if you're not comfortable doing that breath, as long as you're in a nice, relaxed breath, then you're totally fine. That's what you want. You don't want a panicked breath. So that's where support people come in. And especially, again, we're going to diverge just a little bit over here, but when it comes to birth in New York City, where the ratio of nurses to patients are just so high, they just don't have the time for you. And I hear it from a lot of my lactation clients where they're like, we were put in a room and literally nobody looked at us for the next few hours. We were shocked. I was like, yep, welcome to New York, because you're hooked up onto the machine. They have like 6 or however many, 9, 10 screens at the reception area. The nurses are looking. And if they see that everything's okay with mom and baby, they're like, okay, we can leave them alone for now. Versus as soon as you leave New York City, the ratio is much better. And the nurses do sort of take on that role as a doula. They do support you a little bit better, but you don't unfortunately get that really in New York City hospitals. They just don't have the time.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
Is it better to give birth out of New York State, out of New York City or whatever, as opposed to, like, as you just mentioned?
So someone asked is it better to give birth out of New York? Okay. If it's your first baby, you're probably going to have time to get to another destination. But if you've had multiple babies, the likelihood to get out of New York City, very unlikely. You also have to think realistically. Normally, if you're giving birth out of New York City, then your doctor is going to be there, and also you've got the issue of insurance. So you can have those environments. I just find that the doctors that will probably give you more attention just don't take insurance generally. And then the births cost a lot of money. So yeah, if you have an extra 15 grand to drop for a doctor that will just be your doctor for that day, go for it. But realistically speaking, yeah, most people, they have to go with the doctors that are within their insurance. I will say, as soon as you go to midwifery care, you're already doing better because their whole approach to birth is very different. Remember, doctors or OBGYNs are trained surgeons, and that's a surgical subspecialty is obstetrics and gynecology. Midwives, from the get-go, they're learning about women's body, that birth is a natural part of a woman's life cycle. And so birth is normal, birth is natural, and how can we help this woman have this baby? So as soon as something deviates from that, again, they're trained to look for those signs, but they're not trained surgeons. So they're going to try to figure out other ways to get you to have this baby naturally in a non-surgical way. I've done births with both in my experience. I've done both high-risk OBs and midwives, and the experience was completely different. Even the prenatal care and the postnatal care was different. The doctor would come and feel, and okay, baby's doing well. See, before I'd even have a chance to ask my question, they're already out the door. Versus the midwives, I mean, I had my last baby. I was pregnant over Pesach, and I remember I gained a tremendous amount of weight, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. She's like, don't worry. I was in Williamsburg the other day, and this one lady gained 12 pounds. You're fine. But it was just the idea that she was like, it's okay. I get that it's Pesach, and, people are eating, heavy duty matzah the entire time and deep fried potatoes, because what else is there to eat on Pesach? And she was just really cool about it. And they really got to know me as a person, which was really nice. But again, with a lot of the way the system is set up here is that, most practices are becoming big, which is unfortunate, but that's sort of where insurance comes into play, and, where can you go? Because that's sort of where we're limited. But again, if you're going to a group that has midwives, it's already going to be in a different mind frame than someone that's just obese.
So we had last time, before Funko, we had midwives, so this is from that recording will be
Nice. Oh, that's so exciting.
with Kristen and Barry.
So can I say one?
Yeah, sure.
When the woman is trained for Hypnobabies,
Yeah.
Will doula be helpful at all?
Yes. Oh, definitely. So the question was, if you're doing Hypnobabies, will a doula be able to help you? So technically the doula, even if they're not trained in Hypnobabies, the Hypnobabies, it comes with a lot of handouts. So we have the scripts, and then you have your workbook. All right. So there's a lot of information that you guys learn in the 6 weeks. And then there's a ton of handouts. One of the handouts that you get is called a cheat sheet. And it goes through all the techniques and all the tracks that you have used throughout the process. And it sort of gives a guide to the doula, what they could do and how they could help the mom. I do suggest that, when you are going and hiring a doula, you meet with them, you make sure that you connect with them. Communication is key with having a doula. So when you meet your doula, you say, oh, I'm doing Hypnobabies. This is sort of the techniques that we're using. And the doula, if the doulas wants, they can go and train in being a hypnodoula, but they don't have to be. As again, it really comes down to belief system. So you want to have a doula that is going to support your using Hypnobabies. Because if you have a doula that's going to tell you, it doesn't really work, it's not really good, they're already planting in your brain doubt. And once you've got doubt in your brain, it's very hard to get rid of it, right, guys? Because that's the way our brain works. So I always tell parents, take a picture of that cheat sheet. Send it to your doula so it's on their phone, because we all live with our phones, right? It's really important. We can't live without them. So, yeah. And I highly recommend a doula, especially in New York City. I'm very for sisters and moms and aunts and everybody being there. But someone that really understands the New York City system, someone that really knows where we can push, what's normal, what's not normal, that's who you really want at your side. It's, again, New York it's a world unto itself. It's a little bit different. Any questions? Any clarifications? Yeah.
Do you also use hypnosis to help mothers increase their milk supply?
So they do have, Hypnobabies does have tracks that you can buy separately, and they do have a track for breastfeeding success. They have an incredible track for sleep, which I actually bought for myself, and then I bought for my kids because my daughter was having difficulty sleeping. So hypnosis can be used in other aspects of our life. I've actually never used it.
But in the beginning, you said that like your husband will say you put on your sleep track. Is that just,
so?
Not...
No. So there's the sleep track, which is to help me sleep. But again, a side effect of hypnosis is relaxation. So when I am pregnant, I'm using the tracks from the program to help me go to sleep. The birth. So you have tracks specifically for your birthing day, which you do not listen to until your birthing day, because I don't want you pushing out your baby at 36 weeks. And there's affirmations. Does everybody know what affirmations are? Yes, sort of. Take care. Thank you. So affirmations is positive, present tense sentences. Again, it's another way to change your mind and your belief system. So there's pregnancy affirmations, and that's the only track that we have that is not a hypnosis track. So you can listen to it while you're cleaning your kitchen, driving your car, sitting on the train. I worked in the city with my first, and I used to do my hypnosis scripts if I got a chair, if someone was kind enough to get up for me. And I would just no one's looking at anyone on the subway, right? And if you want to be a New Yorker, put on sunglasses in the middle of winter. Nobody sees your eyes. And my route was like 45 minutes. So I would put on a track and I would literally count myself up. Or I'd tell myself before I went to hypnosis, when you hear it's 42nd Street, come out of a hypnosis. And my brain literally would hear 42nd Street, out I'd come, whether I wanted to or not, and I would get off at 47th at that point. So yeah, you can do it wherever, but again, you do have to commit to do the program, to do the practice, so you get full effect. So hypnobirthing so we're just talking about it with Michal. So I'm wondering if this should be on the thing, or if we should cut now. What? I think because we're going to do the technique, I just want to say one more thing, because let's do that. So we spoke about eyes open childbirth hypnosis. That was like really important. The other thing is that the music. So remember we spoke about induction techniques. So one of the techniques, we count backwards. One of the other techniques is the music. So the music that Hypnobabies uses is a specific beat. It's called biannual beat. And the two waves then allow your brain to go into another deeply relaxed state. So that's one of the benefits. And again, it's two frequencies that combine together will create a third frequency, which will allow you to go into a more deeply hypnotic state. And we also spoke about words, right? And words association. I just want to make sure we covered everything. All right, perfect. So the other thing is, for those of you that want to see birth videos that are calm and relaxed Hypnobabies births, you can go onto YouTube. The channel is Enjoy Birth, Enjoy Birth. It's one word. And there's quite a few Hypnobabies births, both in hospital and in home. And they talk about the technique that they used and how they used it. And it's really empowering, even if you choose not to do Hypnobabies or use hypnosis, but just to see that women can give birth calm and relaxed. It's so empowering, and it's so beautiful. To do that. So we got to balance everything out in life. So again, to recap, Hypnobabies is really software for your mind. We're here to retrain your mind, so you listen to it every day. We want to retrain your mind to perceive that childbirth is comfortable, is easy, and can be really positive. And it's, upgrading your software that you've had all your life. you want to have that positive reinforcement. So if you are going to be reading books, again, we do suggest certain books because you don't want to read a book like What to Expect When You're Expecting, because that is like one of the most terrifying negative books out there. If you have it, burn it, throw it out. It's awful. Most of the things in that book are not going to happen to you. So why even go there? Remember we spoke about using positive language. So, you know, you can have the most beautiful rose in the world, but if you're going to call it a stinkweed rose, how many of you are going to want to smell it? And even if you do smell it, you're not going to have that. You've already been suggestible that it should stink, so you're not going to want it to smell it. That's why if you look at laundry detergent, it's fresh and tied, and what else do they call it? Clean. A spring mist. Beautiful words. So Hypnobabies, again, we have 16 audio tracks, 2 affirmation tracks. 1 is for your pregnancy, 1 is for your birthing day. You have a hypnosis track for your birth partner, which I love. I think it's so adorable. So remember, your husband's or your mom, whoever's going to be your birth partner, they'll also have their fears and their, you know, inhibitions. So they get their own track. You actually you get the script. So the first time you read it to your husband, you can actually read it to your husband versus just playing it out loud. And they get their own, they can create their own verbal cue to relax themselves and calm themselves, which is really beautiful. You get the student workbook, the quick reference booklet, which is really helpful. And that you take with you to the hospital. It sort of, again, has things related to the birthing day. So a lot of people are like, well, on my birthing day, which track should I use and how do I use it? So again, we talk about that in the program. It becomes second nature. And we always repeat, you know, it's your switch. So your switch can be in center or off. But once you're in your, once you're in your birthing time, you want to stay in hypnosis until you finish the birth. And I even say, you know, wait until you're in your postpartum room, like stay in that center switch. So you're nice and relaxed and calm until you're just going to conk out. We have the birth partner guide, the script booklet, and then all the handouts. And then the birthing day, you have 4 tracks. You have a track that goes through all the techniques. You have a track for early birthing time. You have a track for pushing out the baby. So that track I really love, and I hear the cutest stories because you want to play it out loud. It's the one track that we specifically suggest you play out loud. And the reason is because we want the room to be in a really nice, calm and relaxed state. And the other thing is that then the nurses and the doctors hear it and then they become really calm. So the whole environment of the room changes. I've had a few students that will be like, had one student where she was like, we were trying so many different techniques, the baby wasn't coming out. Then all of a sudden in the background I hear, oh, take a sheet and wrap it around your birthing bar and pull against the birthing bar to push out the baby. And then the nurse 2 seconds later was like, hey, that's a great idea. Let's do this. Let's get this birthing bar in. Or switch to your side, or let's push out the baby, or remind you to use, again, specific techniques, verbal cues to help that you should stay in that controlled hypnotic state, as well as using, you know, different cues to focus the hypnosis or the hypnoanesthesia in specific areas of your body that you're going to need it at certain places. So that's a really great track to use. And then someone was asking, like, are there tracks for postpartum? Yes, they do have, like, the successful breastfeeding. They have the sleep one. They have a parenting one. I bought it with my last kid, but I actually never, it was on a CD back then. I never downloaded it. I was like, oh, I should do it for this one. So they do have many, many other ones. They do have for fertility. If someone's going through fertility treatments, again, you want to be relaxed when you're doing that, which is very, very difficult. So they actually do have a fertility program as well, which is pretty cool. Any other general questions? And then what we're going to do is we're going to switch off the camera and we'll just do.
How effective is it if you're not being used, like if you want to use a doctor?
Oh, so I was.
Like, you don't have that.
Yeah. So, ooh, do you have to listen to your doctor? Mm-hmm. We're opening a can of worms here. So number one, go for it. Okay, so number one.
Already told us, so you could.
Yeah, so I was gonna say I keep bringing speakers that talk about this.
Then talk about it. Okay, so.
Whatever.
I don't know the story, so I can't comment on that.
I felt like it was important to let him be in charge and
So here's the thing. All right. So here's the thing. For those of you that are online, what was your question about? Like, is it okay to do it if do you have to mention to your doctor? And then does it work with doctors?
Right.
So I would say that the broader question is like, Hashem gives you 9 months to prepare for this baby. And I always joke, you get 9 months to physically prepare for it, mentally, emotionally, also financially. I have a lot of parents that they're like, all of a sudden the baby comes and they're like, oh my gosh, the mom cannot cook. What are we going to do? Okay, well, start saving money. So if you do need, please God, you won't, but if you do need that the mom can physically not cook, you can go on Kingston Avenue and pick something up, just like you prepare for a stroller and a mile. If you need a baby nurse or if you need to do takeout for 3 weeks, try to save up that money. The same thing is, Hashem, you have 9 months to almost like interview this provider. You are hiring this provider. You might not feel it, that you're actually physically paying them to be your provider because it's through insurance. But for those of you that pay a premium for your insurance, you definitely feel it. Or those of you that have a deductible, a 10,000, whatever deductible, it's like, okay, I'm still paying for this. You're actually hiring them. So it's really important that when you do go and hire this provider, you go and you interview them. Don't just choose someone out of convenience. Oh, they're local to me, I'm going to just use them because they're a block away. If you go to them and you say, oh, I want, can I push on my side? Can I push in a squatting position? And they're like, no, you have to be back in stirrups. And you're like, well, I don't want to do that. You don't want to wait for the birth to have that discussion with them. You want to do that during the process of your pregnancy so that, oh, well, I see that we're not really aligning with this. Well, what about a episiotomy? Is that something that you guys do? Oh, yeah, we do that like with every first-time mom, and then we see if we need it for second-time mom. I don't want an episiotomy. The research says that I don't need it. According to the research, it actually says that if you get an episiotomy, it's automatic second-degree tear. The healing process tends to be longer and more painful for moms. So it's not something that if a doctor is doing evidence-based practice should be doing on a regular basis. It shouldn't be a regular procedure. It should be used when it needs to be used. So you've got this time to like ask your doctor or midwife these questions. So then you can make that decision. Okay, do I want to continue working with you? And if you see that your birth plan or what you think your birth is going to be like is not aligning with their policies, then get out of there. Run the other way. Don't stay with them. Remember, you're hiring them. And you don't want to go into a birth already being combative with them because then it's going to be uncomfortable. And it's like, you're going to be like, okay, forget it. I don't care. Just get this baby out. Like, do whatever you want to me. So it's a great opportunity. Don't let your doctor run out of the room. Say, hi, I've got a couple questions. Is now a good time? Sometimes, again, the type of practices a lot of members in this community use are more clinic settings without really having that term in front of them. But it's like 3, 5, 6 doctors, and you're in a room with a bunch of women, and they're going from room to room. And sometimes they're running late. Maybe there was an emergency. Maybe they had a patient that they have to be on the phone with. So sometimes it might not be the right time to ask them all your questions, but you could say, Dr. So-and-so or midwife so-and-so, I have these questions. Is today a good time? And if not, could you please write down in my chart that I get that time next time? So I can go through all these questions. These questions shouldn't be asked in the 9 months. They should be asked as soon as you hire them. So if you see that they're not in alignment with you, then you have a choice, right? It's your choice to then, okay, they don't let me give birth on my side or give birth on all fours. Okay, but I know that, and I guess I'm choosing to stay with them, and I'm going to give birth on my back with my legs up. But it's my choice. It might not be a fair choice. Maybe you feel like, oh, but I like everything else about him, so I'll give into that one part of my birth. I like everything else. I like the hospital. I like this, or whatever it is. But then you're choosing to go into that environment. So therefore, there won't be any conflicts because you've already resolved that conflict before you go into your birth. Does that make sense? So again, realistically, have you had kids yet? Okay. So realistically, how long is the doctor there with you for? They admit you into the hospital, and then they'll come check on you every few hours, if that. So they're not really there for you. They'll be there for the pushing. So the idea, like, do we need their permission to do this? Not really. Do they need to use the language? No, because you're not going to change them. Like, if they want to call it a contraction, they're going to call it a contraction. There is something in Hypnobabies that we call bubble of peace, which is, again, another technique that you learn. And what the bubble of peace does, if you can visualize, it's a bubble that you create, and only positive words can go in. So before you go to the hospital, I tell all my students, bubble of peace. Focus on that bubble of peace. Focus where it's going to be, and it's only going to allow those positive words in. When I was doing my training, one of the teachers said this story, and I thought it was so powerful, where a student of hers came in and said, oh my gosh, I have a story to tell you. And it was a husband and wife, and they'd gone out for coffee with the sister-in-law. And of course, the sister-in-law saw that his wife was pregnant. And so she was like telling her, of course, traumatic, insane, over the top birth story. And he's just sitting there and cringing. And he's like, oh my gosh, like, we're doing Hypnobabies, and my poor wife now has to listen to this. And what am I going to do? And his wife is just sitting there and smiling and nodding. And finally, he's able to, like, change the subject, and they finish off, see you later. And he then turns to his wife and he's like, I'm so sorry. I had no idea that's what my sister was going to do. And his wife looks at him and she's like, what do you mean? She's like, I used my bubble of peace. I have no idea what your sister was saying. I have no recollection. So again, you've got that technique, which shows how powerful the mind can be. Unbelievable. So you can use that bubble of peace to avoid that negative information that you might receive from the doctors or the nurses. I will say, again, personally, I did have my babies, my first two, at a very, very medicalized hospital. They have, I believe, like a 95 or 97% epidural rate. So they very rarely see women give birth naturally, and very, very medical. It was a high-risk maternal fetal medicine practice. I mentioned it to her. She's like, oh, that sounds great. And of course, it was a group of sick doctors, so she was not the doctor on call. But I had my doula with me. I do suggest, stay at home as long as possible. That's a really great tip, because then you're at home, the less you're in the hospital, the less intervention. I got there fairly late. My first was 9, my second was 10. Again, it took me many, many hours to push. My babies are always in the wrong position, unfortunately. But I was like bouncing on that birth ball. I remember like thinking, like, I just don't care. Like, I was by the reception area, my doula had brought her ball, and they were like, oh, our triage rooms are all full. Just give us a minute. And because I was using Hypnobabies, a lot of times they don't realize that women are in childbirth active, because we're very calm and very relaxed and very cool as a cucumber. So they were like, oh, you'll be fine. So my doula whispers it to me in my ear. She's like, the longer we're out here, the better it is for you. She's like, just keep relaxing. So I was just like swaying. And again, my personality is like, I'm very shy. I'm like, I don't want anyone to look at me. But you become so withdrawn and so, I don't want to use the term self-centered, but very, what is it? Thank you. Very centered, very internal. Like, all you want to do is focus on your body and your baby, and you become super connected. And that's what I was doing. I was just like zoning. I had my headphones on. I was listening to my scripts and listening to my music. Finally, they took us to a triage room, and they're like, oh, wow, you're like 9 centimeters already. Off we go. And they couldn't believe it. So by the time my doctor came in, it was like pushing time, and they didn't really have much input. But again, in general, I do see that the doctors are not sitting there with you, holding your hand and really participating in your birthing time. They'll admit you, they'll check on you, and then they're there for the birth, like for the pushing stage. So if you want to have music playing out loud, if you want to have aromatherapy, if you want to have the lights off, I mean, I'd be very shocked if someone says, sorry, you can't do that. But those are great questions to ask your doctor when you are pregnant, I would say. Does that answer your question? No roundabout sort of?
Yeah.
Yeah? Sure.
What's the difference between hypnobirthing and hypnobabies?
So we're gonna do that, but I don't want to, yeah, I think better to do that when we're off.
Yeah. Any
other questions? All right.